Hello, everyone. This is part 2 of week 4 of Plato, a class on the Protagoras, Phaedo, and Sophist. We continue to talk about the Protagoras, and we talk about the long stretch of discussion towards the end of the dialogue where Socrates and Protagoras discuss motivational conflict. And in particular, they discuss a phenomenon that they call being overcome by pleasure. And they say they are picking up that label or that formulation, being overcome by pleasure, from ordinary people who say that that is something they experience. They experience being overcome by pleasure. Now, you might think that there is a real puzzle here. They have been ascribing to, ordinary people, or at least a lot of people, something like hedonism, the view that pleasure is the good. Now, if you were to accept that, and then you say that being overcome by pleasure is a problem or a conflicted thing, that might not really make sense, because really what you would be saying is that being overcome by goodness is a problem. And why would it be a problem to be overcome by goodness? So it seems that if we don't want to say that being overcome by pleasure means being overcome by goodness, but we still hold on to the hedonist premise that pleasure is good, we need to explain this phenomenon of being overcome by pleasure differently, such that it is clear that there is something problematic about it. And the explanation that is being offered goes as follows. There is some short-term pleasure which overwhelms us or which is overpowering, even though there is going to be long-term pain. And that is why it is a problem to be overcome by pleasure. So an example might be that one eats too much chocolate and is overcome by the appetitive desire, as Plato might put it, for the chocolate, even though there is going to be the long-term pain of maybe feeling sick or bad dental health or something like that. So we have a motivational phenomenon where short-term pleasure is overwhelming, even though there is going to be a bigger or larger amount of long-term pain, having to go to the dentist and so on and so forth. Now, the passage of text in the Protagoras where that is being discussed is incredibly famous, far beyond scholarship on Plato or far beyond people working in the history of philosophy. It is a kind of real inspiration for contemporary theory of rationality, theory of action, and it's being discussed in terms of time bias, where the ideas we tend to be biased towards the present. And it's also discussed in terms of future discounting, where the idea is that we discount what is in the future, weigh it less heavily, as it were, than what is in the present. And there are many questions here. Is that rational, or is it always irrational? Are there instances where it is not irrational? How can we make sense of it? And so on and so forth. Now, there is one further move in Plato that I want to mention here, namely that Socrates compares this kind of phenomenon to sense perception. He says, well, that it's somehow comparable to seeing something that is tall but far away as small. That is similar to seeing some big amount of pain in the distant future, as if it was small, such that the present temptation of some pleasure here and now can somehow overrule it or could somehow seem bigger, even though the pain that is coming up in the future is in fact bigger. Now, this comparison between perception and motivation, perception and desire, perception and seeing things as good or bad, is something that interests Plato greatly also in other dialogues. And for now, I just sort of want to invite you to dwell on it. What are the similarities? What are potentially dissimilarities? Plato is very interested in the question of whether a kind of illusion or misperception persists once you know that things are otherwise. So one example that you might consider is you are looking at the moon and you know that it is very, very far away. You might ask yourself, do I see the moon as small or do I see it as big? And Plato is interested in asking parallel questions about motivation.